So my name is Tim Markle. I'm founder of the Forgiveness Factor. We're going to take a really quick run through the role of forgiveness and mental health. We're going to get you out of here before noon because I know y'all are sometimes getting hungry. I apologize for saying y'all. For some of you that are from South, you're like, this guy's from Wisconsin. What the hell? I spent a year living in West Virginia, which is another whole story. Over in Alderson, I think it was Alderson, wherever the women's prison is, and there's another story behind that as well, which we'll not get into. But it is the prison that Martha Stewart went to. So she was there after I was in Alderson, so which I'm probably pronouncing the name wrong. Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about the role of forgiveness and positive mental health. And I made a decision a few minutes ago that I'm not even going to bother to bring out my notes. Okay, so we're just going to go through the slides and we're going to go through them in what I hope to be a fantastic manner. Because what I want to do is I want to give you an overview of where I think we are right now. Just a snapshot of mental health. I'm going to give you a snapshot of the role of what forgiveness is and how it can apply. And then we're going to look at how are the different areas that forgiveness could apply to mental health. Just in case you want to continue this conversation, I usually sit in the lunchroom on the left-hand middle side. So feel free, join me for lunch, join Hunter for lunch. He's a lot more entertaining than I am. All right, so what do we talk about? Well, first, let's talk about the state of mental health. How are we doing? It sucks. Yeah, it really does. COVID has put a strain on our families. It's put a strain on anybody who has had any sort of struggles with maintaining a sense of balance, maintaining a sense of stability. It's been really hard for those people. And then those people that had a sense of stability, had a sense of balance, it ripped it right away. It literally changed the world. It literally changed the way we interacted with each other. It changed the way that we did everything during the day. It changed the way that we interacted with our family members. It changed everything. And we're still reeling from it, folks. We're still recovering. We're still in that recovery, trying to find our new normal. How is our treatment system doing? Sucks. Yeah, pretty much. We still haven't figured out that people are individuals and that what looks like a mental health challenge in one person and the way that we treat that label, that mental health challenge in that person is not the same way that we're going to treat it in another person. Is that we haven't come to the point where we're looking at, you've heard the great thing about the physical therapies and everything about being individualized therapy, that they're going to take your genes and they're going to sit there and they're going to say, oh, this is exactly the amount of medicine you need and the kind of medicine that you need. We're not there yet in mental health, but we need to be. We need to be at the place where mental health treatment is based on who you are and who your past is and what your stressors are and what your strengths are. And we're not there yet with individualized treatment. And then 7 out of 10 youth and juvenile justice system have a mental health challenge. So what are we doing? We're locking people up when we should be giving them treatment. So why do we think this problem is ever going to end? It's not going to end if we continue with that kind of system. More recently, the Harris poll put out in May of this year. What's going on? What they found out was that we have major stressors going on in money issues. People are worried about money, and I think lately that has only gotten worse. I know driving down here, I was very tempted to run a diesel truck off the road just to get its diesel. Then I decided that probably wasn't going to be good if I had to appear here with an ankle bracelet. So I decided against that. So we didn't do that, but it's increasing. The stress is increasing. The global issues. People shooting missiles over each other now. What the heck? And this is causing stress, unbelievable stress in our families. We're still dealing with the grief, the loss, the whole thing of, oh, wow, our immune systems really do work by picking up bugs and then treating them a little bit and then fighting against them. The respiratory viruses that we have going on. Why are we seeing a rise? It's because our kids were not exposed to the small portions of those infections because we kept them away. And so now those infections are coming back. Can we deal with it? Heck yeah, we can deal with it. Because that's what we do. We support each other and we deal with it. But that is a result of COVID, which was put in place to help us live. This wasn't bad intentions on anybody's result. Good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. And that's what we're seeing. Over 50% of the people reported that their relationships are strained. So the fabric that holds us together that relationships that we have are reported strain. Overall, people are feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling fatigued. So place all that into what I would say is, what is the microcosm of this world? Do we live in a forgiving or do we live in an unforgiving world? And I would make the case that we live in a very unforgiving world, that we live in a world that is based upon revenge, that is based upon getting even, that you do something to me, then I have to retaliate and I have to get back at you, that we live in a world where we're even beyond that, where if you disrespect me, so if your words hurt me, then I am allowed to take violence against you. And so we've escalated this eye for an eye, and it turns into word for an eye. You say something, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to get you back. We learn about, I mean, you see it right now, oh my gosh, we're right in the middle of a battle for power. I mean, that's basically what elections are. Who's going to hold power? How important is power in this world? Well, just look at the billions of dollars that are being spent on people coming into power. Power is vital, and we're told that we need to have that power, and we should take the power. And that's not big on community, and I think that harms us. The disrespect that is out there, we're told to hang on to the anger. I still think that that old phrase that revenge is a dish best served cold is still true, is that we want to wait for our best chance to get back at them. And I think that's the overlay of the world that we're living in. So we're living in a stress world. We're living in a world where it's being taught to our children and taught to ourselves that we need to hold on to that anger, that we need to use that anger, and we need to get back at the people that have hurt us. So, anybody in this room ever been hurt? And, okay, a few. Okay, good, very good. Thank you. Thank you, few people, for acknowledging that you are not androids, that you are not clones, that you're not aliens. Yes, it's part of the human experience. We will be hurt, and a lot of times we'll be hurt unjustly. We'll be hurt unfairly. We'll be hurt undeservedly. Now, sometimes these things happen, and it just rolls off our back, right? I mean, there's things that happen during the day. I've had my coffee not made the right way. I know what that's like, but I don't sit there and I look for revenge on the barista. It can roll off my back. Now, some days that's a lot more important than others, but most of the time, that can just roll off my back. I said my order very clearly. You didn't understand it. You did it wrong, so I have a right to be angry with you. But really, am I going to take the time to do that? And then, no, I'm going to let it go. But sometimes we get hurt in a way that it changes the way that we feel about ourselves, and it changes the way that we see the world around us. It changes the way we interact with the world. That's what I like to talk about, that toxic anger, that sense of unforgiveness that builds up in us. It starts to be the filter that we see the world through, is we start to move from this positive, hopeful filter into this negative, hopeless filter, that things are going to go wrong and there's nothing I could do about it, that the world's against me, that no matter what I try, it's not going to work. Where does that come? That comes from trauma. That comes from being hurt as a child, because that's not who we are inside. We are hopeful people. We are people that believe we can change. We believe that we can help each other out. We are people that thrive on community, that thrive on connection, that thrive on relationships. Toxic anger and unforgiveness pull us away from those relationships. They isolate us, and they make us want to be alone, where we lose the strength of our community. And so when are we more likely to be hurt, where it changes the worldview in ourselves? When we are already feeling vulnerable. Think about children. How much power, how vulnerable are we as children? I am still working on going back to some things. I'm not reliving my childhood, but what I'm doing, sorry, dudes, I get so excited about this. So this is what I'm presently learning. So this is brand new learning right here, is what I'm learning to do is I am learning to take myself as this, believe it or not, going to be 58-year-old man. I know, I just don't look, I know, thanks, appreciate it. Oh, you're too kind, But looking at the strength that I have as a 58-year-old, going back, and instead of being mad at that 5-year-old who couldn't protect himself, at that 5-year-old who had no power over the abusers, at that 5-year-old who didn't understand alcoholism in the home. And instead of deal with the problems that the world throws at you. Forgiveness gives you that strength. It gives you the ability that when somebody wants to hurt you, you could sit there and say, hey, I've heard this song before. I know how this turns out, and I don't like it. I'm going to change it. I'm going to do something different so that there is a different outcome. So what happens when we're hurt unjustly, unfairly? Well, we've already talked about unforgiveness and anger. I would also say that we deal with a lot of then hopelessness, that we start to lose our hope for the future. We start to feel like a burden. Now, some of you, if you come to the role of forgiveness and suicide prevention later, we're going to talk a lot about that hopelessness and burdensomeness. At least that's the plan. I don't always follow my own plans. Yeah, thank you, Hunter. So what I'm gonna posit is that when we carry around this negativity, this unforgiveness, these balls of resentment that are eating us away in our bellies, is that what we can see happen is that it will affect us physically. It will affect us emotionally. We are this intricate system that if our physical beings are off, that means our mental thoughts are going to be off, our emotions are going to be off, our spiritual life is going to be off. And if we're inundating our bodies with negativity, with that negative thoughts, with our negative emotions, that's going to affect our physical bodies. It's all connected. Our bodies are all connected together. And so what we see is that when people carry around unforgiveness, is they get physically stressed out, mentally they get triggered. I mean, anybody, is there still a song out there that when it comes on the radio, you think of that person at 15 years old? Yeah, yep, and if it didn't end well, it's not a pleasant rest of the car ride. We get triggered by these memories. And if we don't do anything about it, if we don't step in to change it, then it becomes like this pathway. It becomes this rut that when X happens, guess I got to do Y. Don't even think about it. It just happens. And so we get into these mental ruts when we get triggered. Emotionally, I think unforgiveness could be a result, can result into depression and anger, resentment, this sense of bitterness. Relationships get broken. It's hard to trust people. If you had your trust violated as a little kid, it is really hard to trust in relationships. You're constantly doubting and going, yeah, they're going to turn on me at any time. I've been married 28 years and there's still days where I'm like, oh, any day now. She's going to have had enough. If she hasn't had enough in 28 friggin' years, tomorrow is not going to make a difference. Okay, she's in it for the long haul. But why does that happen? That happens because my mom was taken away in an ambulance when I was a young kid. It happened because I have a dad who's an alcoholic. It happens because I had a very unsteady family life and it was inconsistency everywhere. And I couldn't trust anybody. I have an older brother who abused me. I had no trust growing up that the people that I counted on weren't available to me. And in some ways harmed instead of helped. So do I have trust issues? Hell yes, I have trust issues. If I didn't realize I had trust issues, I would not be in a relationship for 28 years. Because if I don't realize I have trust issues, then I'm going to blame it on something else, and I'm just going to get out the door and I'm going to go my own way. So I need to realize what's inside of me. I need to figure out what I need to deal with so I can heal from it. Deal to heal. Just made that up the other day. It's now on a slide. Pretty proud of myself. Spiritually, people go around thinking that there's got to be more than life. All right. So what I want to say is, what if there was a way that we could deal with all this? You know, it's not going to solve all the problems of the world. But what if there was a way that we could start to get to the core of our negative selves? If we could get to the core of our negative relationships? And what if we looked at an option that the world doesn't talk to us about? Or if it does, like in my case, I grew up in this wonderful church. They would talk about forgiveness quite a bit. And I felt really guilty because I didn't forgive. And I felt really guilty because I didn't know how to forgive. They're really, really good at telling me I should forgive and really, really bad at telling me how to forgive. And that's why at the end, and this is, I'll post online, I want to introduce you to friends of mine at International Forgiveness Institute, because they have step-by-step, the work that I do is based on the work of Dr. Robert Enright. And it is walking people through how to forgive, because we see this goal and we don't know how to get there. We want to show you how to get there. My story of growing up with forgiveness is, anybody remember back in the day before there were bike helmets? Yeah, there was a day before there, believe it or not, young people, there were no helmets, there were no elbow pads, there were no knee pads. We were encouraged to do things like take large refrigerator boxes and slide them down on grass hills. I would not do this today, but that was fun. That was what we did for fun. Okay, so before video games, we hurt ourselves. We did highly risky behaviors. Well, my older brother decided that not only did he want to do a risky behavior, but he wanted to do a science experiment. And so, so his science experiment was, what would happen if 10-year-old John, 6-year-old Tim, roughly, slid down this hill in Connecticut on this refrigerator box, and if the box suddenly stopped? Yeah, right? It's an interesting question. What would happen? So you all know what would happen is he stops the box, he stops, I keep rolling down to the bottom of the hill, and I break my arm. Now, you remember back in the day what a broken arm meant? And then you had this concrete thing. They put your arm in concrete. It smelled like cat litter. It was a horrible experience. This air cast, a bunch of wimps who just get air cast. I don't know. We concrete, set it in concrete. So that's how I started our East Coast vacation, was with my arm set in concrete, smelling like cat litter. I was not happy. I later slammed my older brother's fingers in the hotel room door, but we're not going to talk about that. It's a poor way of dealing with it. But my parents sat us down and said, okay, John, that's my older brother. John, are you sorry for what you did to Tim? John, being the very smart person that he is, said, oh, yes, Mom. I'm sorry. Oh, Tim, John said he's sorry. What do you say? I forgive you, John. And that was the last we ever talked about it. It was supposed to be done, darn, over with. And that is one of the formulas that we have been taught. And it's really damaging for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't know if that person's really sorry. But our side of it is we're supposed to say, I forgive you, and then everything's supposed to be okay and move on. The other part of it is that it has given the power of forgiveness over to the offender. And so we are sitting here waiting for our justice, waiting for that person to come and admit that they did something wrong to us before we're going to move off of this. Before we're going to keep our anger. And what does that? Well, that keeps us in anger. That's affecting our life. That's ruining our life. That person's going on their merry way, and we're sitting here begging our offender to come and just say you're sorry. So as a child and alcoholic, I had a lot of resentments against my dad. And when I sobered up, he did not sober up until after I sobered up. But when we both sobered up, I went to him and I said, okay, Dad, this is a list of things that you did. That this has hurt me. This was my growing up. And being the decades-long alcoholic that he is, His response was, I don't remember any of it. I just don't, I can't really apologize, say I'm sorry for doing the things that I don't remember doing. So what do I do? Do I wait for his memory to come back? No, that's not going to happen. So I can choose to move on in forgiveness, even if the offender has no idea they have hurt me. If the offender is alive or dead, I get to move forward. I get to take the power back, and I get to choose to forgive. How important is having self-control and power in our mental health? Oh, in my mental health, it's huge. When I don't feel like I'm being played like a puppet, when I feel like I have the choices and that I have the power to move my own mental health forward, that it's not dependent on you, then I do a lot better. So forgiveness is not just saying I forgive you, it's not finding excuses. So we're not talking letting people off the hook. Okay, so get that thought out of your head. Oh, you're just letting people get away with it. No, forgiveness and justice can walk alongside each other. Okay, so someone hurts you, yes, they can have justice. It just may be not you who is exacting that justice for them, because you may not be in the best place for it. So we're not finding excuses. We can't offer to inanimate objects. Forgiveness at its core focuses on the other person, and it's not a quick formula. I've been through all of the Harry Potter movies. I've read the books. I cannot find a magic formula for forgiveness. So we have to do the work. So what is this forgiveness thing that I'm talking about? So what I'm just going to warn you right now, what we're going to do now, I'm going to give you the steps of forgiveness. We're then going to go through about 15 slides without you seeing any of them to get to the slide I want to get to. And if somebody could please let me know when I'm like 2 minutes away from 11:45, because I already feel like I've talked for half. We're 2 minutes away from 11:45. Thank you also. But I get an extra 5 minutes, don't I, right? Right, yeah, you'll give me an extra 5. I mean, lunch is right there. You understand that, right? It's right you're going to get to lunch. It's right there. You don't got to go, you walk across the hall. So using the definition of Dr. Robert Enright, when we forgive, we willingly and deliberately offer goodness to those who have been unfair to us. It sucks, but it starts with an unfairness. It starts with a hurt. And what we want to do is we don't necessarily want to look at the hurt. We want to look at the consequences of that hurt. Is if I sit there and I concentrate all of my energy on what happened, then I am stuck in this loop because I can't change what happened. Nothing that I could ever do is going to change what has already happened. But if there have been consequences because of what happened, I have the power to change those consequences. I don't have to accept the consequences from that action. I may have to accept that that action happened and it sucked, but I do not have to accept what it did to me. I get to do what I want to do with myself. I don't have to live in those consequences. So here we go. Ready? You're going to have to trust me to say that there have been a lot of different studies that have happened on forgiveness, and scientists are saying that yes, forgiveness does work. It's part of different therapies. There's a lot of different studies out there. Dr. Enright, there he is. He won the gold medal award. Woo, doctor. So he Gold Impact Award in psychology. So the field of psychology is starting to realize that this forgiveness thing is real. And they're starting to teach therapists on how to do forgiveness therapy. Thanks, Dr. Enright. We have stories of the nickel mines of Pennsylvania, this church in Charleston, South Virginia. So this is why we say, just do it, right? You should just do it. And so then we talk about how do you forgive? And I'll talk about this a little bit more this afternoon. But I'll give you Dr. Enright's way is first we got to focus on the pain and the junk. We focus on one person. We're not learning how to be forgiving people until we learn how to forgive a person. Decide that what I've been doing with all my pain and my anger and everything isn't working. Consider that maybe forgiveness is there. Choose it, decide. We work a lot on rehumanizing the people, blah, blah, blah. You can forgive yourself. Yep, that's all wonderful. You saw the gift of goodness. If we had time, I could, but just look at this life for 1 second. The best thing that y'all could do is check your negativity at the door. Who is that person that you are talking about every single day? Stop it. Just stop feeding that monster. One of the best things we could do for our mental health, one of the best things we can do to learn to be forgiving people is to shut our mouths. As we start shutting our mouths, then we're able to think more about what our brains are saying. And then we can think more whether we want that thought. Does that thought line up with my values? Maybe it does. Cool, have that thought. But until then, let's just shut our mouths a bit. Recognize that we leak all over. We don't want to. But what's inside of us is going to come out all over people around us. We are leaky people. We get to choose. So no, oh my gosh, that's not where I want to go. Oh my gosh, it's grunge. Next one. What the heck happened? Help. Am I? Wow, that looked really good. No. That was really, so the one slide. So I think we're, yeah, okay, there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. Okay, no, wait, we're not lost. We're not lost. All right, so. Yes, the slide, oh yes, well, that's the ending. So yeah, y'all go do amazing things, but sit still. Don't go anywhere right now. So where do I see forgiveness? And I'm sorry that it took so long to build the framework, but I see forgiveness can work in these personal therapies. As people who have mental health challenges, I'm usually mad at somebody. What if instead of perpetuating that madness, perpetuating that anger, I worked on forgiving them, on understanding them that they are a human, that they are a hurt human being, that I can't take away their humanity card, that I started to learn that hurt people, not to take away the blame, but to understand more about who that person is so that I don't demonize them. So I think forgiveness therapy can work with depression therapy, with anxiety. I very much believe that forgiveness fits into suicide prevention and recovery. I'll talk about that more later today. But the point of recovery is that how many people just remain hurt for the rest of their lives because of that action of somebody else. And what if we could move beyond, oh my gosh, that hurt me so much, I have such a loss. It's true, it's a huge loss. But what if I could move on to forgiving that person and trying to get to a point where, you know, I'm never going to be okay that they did it, but I don't have to be angry and sad the rest of my life. I believe as a recovering alcoholic, forgiveness fits in huge into addiction recovery. Is that if we don't hit those steps of forgiving other people and forgiving ourselves, then our chances of relapse increase. I think it's one of the keys to addiction recovery. Where can forgiveness fit in? There's a wonderful person in Milwaukee who's doing forgiveness therapy with the people that are coming out of jail and the people that are still incarcerated. Sylvester Jackson. He was in prison. He learned about forgiveness there. It changed his life, and he is going back and changing prisoners' whole life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, number one, I would question the therapist. But so she asked how, you know, someone has 10 years of therapy and they just don't go anymore because they're just like, it didn't help me. It didn't do anything for me. Number one, I would say that there's other ways to recover besides therapy. Is that how we treat our bodies, how we exercise, how we look at the world around us can be as impactful as the therapy itself, depending on the challenges. But I just believe that we have so much connectedness in our life that if we're relying on just this one thing to make us better, it's not going to work. We need to look at our whole lives to make us better, and it needs to come together. I liked what Rashawn said yesterday at the keynote. So I don't have a great answer. Forgiveness can fit in our driving. Just take that, whoever is out there. I just challenge you, instead of looking for that SOB from whatever state that you don't like and that they're always bad drivers, instead of looking for them, look for the people that are driving to let other people in, that are turning on their signals. You're going to find them. You may not believe they exist right now. Like in my world, I have come to believe that there are Illinois drivers that are good drivers. I've had to think about that, being from Wisconsin. Replace the negative with the positive, deal and heal. We have to figure out what it is that is holding us back so that we can heal from it. I very much believe in that. So the rest of the slides you already saw. Go do amazing things. Remember, there's always more to your story. Today is the start of tomorrow. You can do this. Go to the International Forgiveness Institute. Go to my website, Forgiveness Factor, and we have tools that you can use to start your journey of forgiveness. It's going to be a journey. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it, and it's going to change your life. Thank you so much for being here. Go enjoy lunch.